The canvas of Control Priya Malhotra's hands never trembled when she painted. Not when she was perched 40 feet high on a scaffold, transforming blank walls into vibrant stories. Not when critics circled below, murmuring their premature judgments. Her brushstrokes remained steady, deliberate, perfect, just like the image she had cultivated for herself in the competitive Mumbai art scene at 32. Priya had become the city's most sought-after mural artist. Her work adorned the walls of luxury hotels, corporate headquarters, and now the prestigious Horizon Gallery. Her public persona was as carefully crafted as her art, composed, confident, and completely in control. No one saw the rituals that preceded each workday, counting of breaths, the recitation of affirmations, the occasional anti-anxiety medication, hidden in a mint tin. No one knew about the nights she spent staring at her ceiling, her mind racing with every potential catastrophe, every possible mistake, every imagined criticism. "The light hits your ocean scene perfectly from this angle," said a quiet voice below her scaffold. Priya looked down to see Rohan Desai, the gallery's new curator. Unlike the other staff who fluttered around her with excessive enthusiasm, Rohan maintained a respectful distance. His observations were always thoughtful, never intrusive. "Thank you," she replied, her voice professional, revealing nothing of the way her heart had accelerated at the sudden interruption. "I timed my work to catch the morning light through the skylight." Rohan nodded, his eyes studying not just the mural, but the tension in her shoulders, the controlled precision of her movements. At 36, he had spent years cataloging not just art, but the people who created it. He recognized the signs of someone holding themselves together through sheer willpower. "You've been working since dawn," he observed. "The staff mentioned you were here when they arrived." Priya dipped her brush into azure blue, keeping her expression neutral. "I work best when the gallery's quiet." What she didn't say was that she had barely slept, that the prospect of the upcoming exhibition opening her first solo showcase had sent her into a spiral of panic that only painting could temporarily quiet. "I brought chai," Rohan said, gesturing to a small tray he had set down, "and some samosas from the cafe down the street." The owner insisted I bring them when I mentioned I was heading to the gallery where Priya Malhotra was creating her newest masterpiece. A genuine smile briefly broke through Priya's professional mask. "Mrs. Sharma and her samosas. She's been feeding me since my first small exhibition 3 years ago." "She speaks very highly of you," Rohan said, pouring the chai into 2 cups. "Says you're the daughter she never had." Priya carefully descended the scaffold, accepting the steaming cup with a nod of thanks. The spiced aroma centered her, momentarily quieting the constant hum of anxiety that had become her background music. "The exhibition opens in 3 days," Rohan said, his tone conversational rather than pressuring. "Everything is on schedule. The lighting tests were completed yesterday, the catalog has gone to print, and the guest list is impressive. The gallery has never seen this level of interest." Each accomplishment he listed felt like another weight on Priya's shoulders. Another expectation to meet, another opportunity to fail publicly. She sipped her chai, using the moment to compose herself. "That's good news," she managed, though. Her stomach tightened. Rohan watched her with observant eyes that missed nothing. He recognized the slight tightening around her mouth, the barely perceptible increase in her breathing rate. "It can be overwhelming," he said simply, not as a question. Priya looked up, startled by his perception. For a moment, the perfect facade cracked, revealing a glimpse of the vulnerability beneath. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. "Nothing I can't handle," she replied with practiced confidence, setting down her empty cup. "I should get back to work. Thank you for the chai." As she climbed back up the scaffold, Rohan lingered a moment longer than necessary. He had curated dozens of exhibitions, worked with countless artists, but something about Priya Malhotra's controlled precision, about the contrast between her bold, emotionally evocative art and her carefully maintained composure, intrigued him. "I'll be in my office if you need anything," he said finally. "Anything at all?" Shattered patterns, the Horizon Gallery buzzed with Mumbai's elite on opening night. Crystal champagne flutes clinked, Designer perfumes mingled in the air, and camera flashes punctuated the elegant crowd. At the center of it all stood Priya in a midnight blue sari, her smile fixed. Her posture perfect as she explained the inspiration behind her ocean-themed collection to a group of potential buyers. The depth variations represent our emotional landscapes, she explained, gesturing toward the massive mural that dominated the main wall. How we appear calm on the surface while currents move beneath. Fascinating perspective, remarked an art critic, scribbling notes. Your technical precision is remarkable, but I'm curious, do you ever let go of that control in your work? Question landed like a stone in Priya's stomach. Behind her professional smile, something began to unravel. The gallery lights suddenly seemed too bright, the voices too loud, the air too thin. She maintained her composure, answering questions and accepting compliments, but inside, a storm was building. From across the room, Rohan watched her. Unlike the others captivated by her art, he saw the woman behind it, the slight tremor in her hand, as she accepted another glass of champagne she wouldn't drink. The too frequent glances toward the exit, the increasingly strained smile that never quite reached her eyes. Priya's work embodies the contemporary renaissance of public art in India, announced Vikram Kapoor, the gallery owner, addressing the crowd. We're honored to showcase her first solo exhibition and invite her to say a few words about her journey. Spotlight found her, and all eyes turned expectantly. Priya stepped forward, her notes prepared and memorized. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her apartment. Thank you all for, she began, her voice steady. Then something shifted. The words she had practiced dissolved into the sudden roaring in her ears. The room began to tilt and spin, faces blurring into a judging, expectant mass. Her chest constricted, as if bound by invisible ropes. Each breath became shallower than the last. The microphone trembled in her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered, barely audible before backing away from the podium. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Vikram quickly stepped forward, smoothly attributing her abrupt departure to the overwhelming emotion of the moment while redirecting attention to the open bar. But Priya was already pushing through the service door, desperate for air, for escape, for somewhere to hide from the crushing shame of her public collapse. She stumbled into the gallery's back garden, a small enclosed courtyard used for summer receptions. In the moonlight, her trembling hands appeared ghostly as she pressed them against her chest. Trying to force air into lungs that refused to cooperate, the world narrowed to a pinpoint, darkness encroaching from the edges of her vision. Priya. Rohan's voice came from somewhere nearby, quiet but steady. You're having a panic attack. It will pass. You're safe. She couldn't respond, couldn't even look at him. Humiliation burned through her alongside the terror. After years of maintaining perfect control, she had shattered in front of everyone who mattered in her professional world. Rohan didn't try to touch her or move closer. Instead, he sat on a stone bench a few feet away, his presence solid but undemanding. Focus on one thing, he suggested gently. The fountain. Listen to the water. The soft splashing gradually penetrated her panic. Oh yeah. Rohan's voice continued. Yeah. Calm anchor in the storm. Now take a breath with me. In through your nose slowly. Hold it. Now release through your mouth. She followed his instructions mechanically at first, then with increasing awareness. Minutes passed. She wasn't sure how many before the vice around her chest began to loosen. The garden gradually came back into focus. The small stone fountain. The potted jasmine plants. The strings of unlit lanterns overhead. And Rohan. Sitting quietly, his expression showing not pity but understanding. How did you know? She finally managed, her voice raw. My sister has anxiety disorder, he replied simply. I've learned to recognize the signs. Shame flooded back. Everyone saw. My career is still extraordinary, he interrupted firmly. Nothing that happened tonight changes the brilliance of your work or your talent. Priya shook her head, unable to believe him. I can't go back in there. You don't have to. Not tonight. Rohan stood slowly. Let me call you a car. The exhibition will still be here tomorrow. What will people say? She whispered, the question that had haunted her for years. Rohan considered this. They'll say what people always say. When they don't understand something, the ones who matter, the ones who see your art for what it truly is, they'll still be here. For the first time, Priya really looked at him. Beyond his professional demeanor, she saw something unexpected. Complete absence of judgment. His eyes held only quiet compassion, his posture conveying patience without pressure. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, suddenly suspicious. "People always wanted something. Because someone helped me once when I needed it," he answered, the simplicity of his response disarming her defenses. "Because behind your incredible art I see someone fighting battles no one else notices." A car was called. Rohan walked her through the staff exit, shielding her from curious eyes. Before she got in, he handed her a small paper bag. "For later," he said, "when you're ready." At home, curled in the protective darkness of her apartment, Priya finally opened the bag. Inside was a sketch pad and a set of charcoal pencils with a note. "Sometimes the messiest art speaks the truest words. No pressure, no expectations, just release." That night, for the first time in years, Priya drew without planning, without precision, without control. The images were raw, chaotic, frightening. More honest than anything she had created in years. Quiet conversations 3 days passed before Priya found the courage to return to the gallery. She arrived early, when the morning light bathed the space in gentle gold, and the only sounds were distant traffic and the quiet hum of the climate control system. Her exhibition continued without her. Vikram had been surprisingly understanding, handling the press with practiced charm, explaining her absence as a creative retreat. Following the emotional intensity of the opening, she stood before her ocean mural, seeing it differently now. The controlled perfection of her technique felt like a stranger's work, beautiful, but removed from the raw emotion she had poured into her charcoal sketches over the sleepless nights since her breakdown. "I wondered when you'd come back," Rohan's voice came from the doorway, neither surprised nor intrusive. Priya didn't turn. "I almost didn't." He moved to stand beside her, maintaining a respectful distance as they both gazed at the mural. "Do you see now, when you look at it?" "A lie," she said softly, the admission painful but freeing. "Beautiful, technically perfect, but a lie nonetheless." Rohan considered this. Or perhaps just one facet of truth. The part you felt safe sharing. The observation struck her. She finally turned to face him, prepared for pity, but finding only thoughtful attention. "I made something else," she said, hesitantly offering him her sketchbook. It felt more intimate than undressing, showing him these raw, chaotic images born from her panic and shame. Rohan accepted the book with appropriate reverence, turning pages slowly. Expression remained open, engaged, as he studied the violent strokes and shadowed forms that depicted her inner storms. "These are extraordinary," he said finally. "They have a life your public work hasn't shown yet." "They're disturbing," she countered. "Art isn't meant to only comfort. Sometimes its purpose is to disturb, to reveal, to break open," he returned. "The sketchbook. Thank you for trusting me with these." His sincere appreciation of her most vulnerable work disarmed her. The embarrassment she expected to feel never materialized. "Would you like to see the exhibition responses?" he asked, changing the subject with intuitive timing. "The reviews have been exceptional." Priya tensed. "And my ... episode, mentioned only in one tabloid piece that nobody took seriously?" Smiled slightly. "The art world has a short attention span for anything beyond the work itself. Your murals have commanded all the attention." Relief washed through her, though she wasn't entirely convinced. "I've set aside the small gallery office for you," Rohan continued. "If you'd like a private space to collect yourself before viewing. The exhibition hall. There's no pressure to interact with visitors." The thoughtfulness of this gesture, offering sanctuary without assumptions, touched her deeply. "Thank you," she said, the words inadequate for the gratitude she felt. The office became her refuge over the following weeks. Her exhibition drew record crowds, Priya observed from a distance, gradually venturing into the main space during quieter hours. Rohan never pushed her to make appearances, but created natural opportunities when she seemed ready. They fell into an unplanned routine. Morning chai in the office, discussing art history or exhibition logistics-neutral topics that felt safe. Gradually, their conversations deepened. "How long have you had anxiety?" asked one rainy afternoon. The question offered gently, with an understanding that she could decline to answer. Priya traced the rim of her teacup. "Since childhood, I think, though I didn't have a name for it then." She paused, organizing thoughts she rarely vocalized. "My parents saw my artistic talent as a gift, but also a responsibility. Excellence was expected. Anything less was." She shrugged. "Unacceptable." Rohan nodded, allowing silence to create space for her words. "The first panic attack happened during a school art competition. I was 12. The memory surfaced with surprising clarity. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My teacher thought I was being dramatic. A bitter smile crossed her lips. I won first place, but all I remember is the shame of losing control." "So, you built a life around maintaining control," Rohan observed. "It seemed the only way to survive." She looked up at him. "What about your sister? How does she manage?" "Not by pretending it doesn't exist," he said carefully. Mira found help proper. Therapy, medication when needed. She learned to see her anxiety not as weakness, but as part of how her mind works. He hesitated. "She's a photographer now."
"Actually, she captured some images at your opening night."
Priya stiffened.
She saw. She recognized what was happening, Rohan admitted.
"She's the one who noticed first and sent me to check on you." This revelation shifted something in Priya's understanding. "Your sister has panic attacks, but still works in crowded spaces, with public pressure."
Ow.
"She has difficult days," Rohan acknowledged, "but she's developed strategies. She stopped believing she needs to hide that part of herself to be valued." The concept seemed impossible, yet the evidence existed. This woman she'd never met who shared her struggles, but hadn't let them define her limits. As weeks passed, their conversations expanded beyond the gallery. They discovered shared loves old Bollywood films, street food from a particular vendor near Chowpatty Beach, obscure poetry. Rohan introduced her to his favorite hidden bookshop. Priya showed him the secret rooftop garden where she sketched. When the city became too overwhelming, one evening, as they walked along the seafront after a small private gallery event that Priya had successfully navigated, she realized something had fundamentally shifted. For the first time in years, she had spent an entire day without counting her breaths or planning escape routes. "I've been seeing someone," she said abruptly. Rohan's raised eyebrow, she clarified. "A therapist. Dr. Sharma. She specializes in anxiety disorders, in creative professionals." Rohan's smile was warm. "That takes courage." "It was terrifying," she admitted. "Still is sometimes. But—" She stopped walking, turning to face the Arabian Sea stretching before them. "I'm tired of living behind perfect brushstrokes, being afraid all the time." "What did your charcoal sketches show you?" Rohan asked. His question seemingly tangential, but somehow cutting to the heart of everything. Priya considered this, watching. "The waves catch moonlight, that there's power in the chaos. That maybe my anxiety isn't something to hide, but something to transform." She turned to him. "I want to create something new, something true." The night breeze carried the salt scent of the sea between them, as Rohan's eyes met hers with understanding that required no words. In that moment of quiet connection, Priya felt something unfamiliar unfurl within her chest. Not the constriction of panic, but the expansion of possibility. The Gallery of Healing, the monsoon season, arrived with dramatic flourish, sheeting rain transforming Mumbai into a glistening, waterlogged maze. Inside Priya's Studio A, converted warehouse space in Bandra, with high ceilings and industrial windows and other. Transformation was taking place. Gone were the meticulously planned sketches and carefully mixed paints of her previous work. The walls were now covered with expansive canvases bearing bold motive strokes, some violent in their intensity, others delicate in their vulnerability. Blues and grays dominated, but unexpected bursts of crimson and gold emerged from the chaos, like hope breaking through storm clouds. Priya stood before her newest piece. Barefoot on the paint-splattered concrete floor, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her kurta bearing the marks of her creative process. This was not the perfectly composed artist who had once been so careful to maintain appearances. Oh, this was a woman in conversation with her demons, transforming them stroke by stroke. "May I come in?" Rohan's voice echoed from the doorway where he stood with 2 chai cups and a bag from their favorite bakery. Rain dripping from his umbrella, Priya gestured him forward without turning, still absorbed in the canvas before her. "Something's missing," she murmured. "I can feel it, but I can't see it." Rohan set down their breakfast and moved to stand beside her, studying the painting. Unlike other viewers who might rush to offer opinions, he remained silent, allowing the artwork to speak for itself. The canvas depicted what appeared to be a human figure submerged underwater, surrounded by swirling currents. But unlike her previous ocean imagery with its controlled beauty, this showed the dual nature of submersion, both the panic of drowning and the strange serenity that comes with surrender. "What were you feeling when you created this?" he finally asked. Priya's hands moved unconsciously as she spoke, tracing invisible patterns in the air. "My therapist asked me to visualize my anxiety last week. I kept seeing water, not gentle waves, but the undertow, the force that pulls you down when you fight against it." She tilted her head, studying her work critically. "But there was something else too, a moment of release, I suppose. When you stop fighting and just exist within it." "The duality," Rohan observed. "Terror and peace inhabiting the same space." She looked at him with surprise. "Exactly." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary before Priya turned back to the canvas, picking up a brush and mixing a new sheeta, luminescent pearl white with hints of gold. "Would you mind if I worked while we talk? I think I see what's missing now." "Not at all," Rohan replied, settling onto a paint-splattered stool to watch as she began adding delicate lines of light penetrating the water, transforming the emotional landscape of the piece as she worked. They fell into the comfortable rhythm of conversation they had developed over the past 2 months. Rohan shared news of the gallery, a new installation arriving from Delhi, an upcoming festival of emerging artists. Priya told him about her latest therapy session, the breathing techniques she was learning, the journal she had begun keeping. "Dr. Sharma thinks I should consider showing these," she said, gesturing to the new canvases surrounding them. "A different kind of exhibition, something more ... authentic. What do you think?" Rohan asked, careful not to impose his opinion. Priya's brush paused mid-stroke. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "These aren't just paintings. They single quotes, excavations. Parts of myself I've never shown anyone, except me," Rohan pointed out gently. A smile touched her lips. "Except you." The distinction hung in the air between them, acknowledging the unique space their relationship occupied, neither purely professional nor simply friendship, but something that had grown into its own form, undefined, yet undeniably significant. "Vikram called yesterday," Rohan said after a comfortable silence. "The contemporary wing renovation is complete. He's planning the reopening exhibition for October and asked if you might be interested." Priya's hands stilled again. "He still wants to work with me?" "After your opening night hasn't diminished his respect for your talent," Rohan assured her. "If anything, the success of the exhibition, despite your absence, has only increased your mystique." She laughed, a genuine sound that had become more frequent in recent weeks. "Mystique? Is that what we're calling my panic attack now?" "The art world loves reinvention," Rohan said with a smile.
Damn.
"And transformation makes for a compelling narrative." Priya considered this as she added final touches to the canvas. "Would you do, if these were your demons, to either hide or display?" Rohan took his time answering, understanding the weight of the question. "I believe that art's greatest power lies in its ability to create connection through vulnerability," he said finally. "Your technical skill impressed people, but these," he gestured to the raw, emotional canvases surrounding them, "these will make people feel less alone in their own struggles." His words resonated with something Dr. Sharma had told her about shame losing its power when brought into the light. Still, the prospect of such public vulnerability made her stomach tighten with familiar anxiety. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she confessed. Rohan's expression softened. Strength isn't about never feeling fear. It's about continuing despite it. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the high windows as Priya set down her brush and truly looked at Rohan. Over the past months, he had become her anchor never, trying to fix her or dismiss her struggles, simply standing beside her through both progress and setbacks. His patience never wavered, his perspective never judgmental. "Why have you stayed?" she asked suddenly. Through all of this, she gestured vaguely at herself, the studio, the evidence of her ongoing battle with anxiety. Rohan seemed surprised by the question. "Because I see you," he said simply. "Not just the artist or the anxiety, but you, Priya. And I find that I want to keep seeing you in whatever way you'll allow." The honesty of his answer left her momentarily speechless. In the silence that followed, the distance between them seemed at once vast and non-existent. "I'd like to show you something," she said finally, moving to a covered canvas in the corner of the studio, the one piece she hadn't yet revealed to him. With slightly trembling hands, she removed the cloth. Unlike the other works with their emotional turbulence, this painting depicted two figures sitting quietly on a bench in a moonlit garden the night of her panic attack. The technical skill of her earlier work was evident, but now infused with the emotional authenticity of her new approach. What made the piece extraordinary was the depiction of air between the figures. Somehow Priya had managed to paint the very essence of compassionate space, of presence without pressure. "This is how it felt," she said softly, "when you sat with me. Like the first breath after thinking I might never breathe again." Rohan stood transfixed before the canvas, visibly moved. "Priya, this is..." Words failed him. She took a step closer. To him, her heart racing, not with anxiety, but with a different kind of anticipation. "I think I'm ready," she said, "for the exhibition, for whatever comes next." Her eyes met his, with newfound certainty. "But I don't want to do it alone." The question behind her words hung in the air between them. Rohan's response was too gently. Take her paint-stained hand in his, a gesture that spoke of partnership, of walking beside rather than ahead or behind. Outside, the monsoon continued its cleansing deluge, but inside the studio, something new had taken root, a connection forged. In vulnerability, strengthened through understanding, and now blossoming into possibility. The masterpiece unveiled the Horizon Gallery's contemporary wing hummed with anticipation. Beneath the surface, an intimate excavation read the exhibition title above the entrance. Inside, Priya's new collection transformed the space raw. Powerful canvases chronicling her journey through anxiety and toward acceptance. Unlike her opening night 6 months ago, Priya now stood centered and present. Her simple linen dress and minimal jewelry reflected her new artistic approach authentic rather than perfect. Beside her, Rohan maintained a supportive presence without overshadowing her moment. "Are you ready?" asked. Quietly, Priya took a deep breath, not to suppress anxiety, but to acknowledge it as part of her. Yes, the doors opened. Critics, collectors, and art lovers flowed in, their reactions immediate and visceral. Some gasped at the emotional intensity, others stood transfixed before particular pieces. Most striking was the centerpiece installation, a tunnel of canvas panels depicting the evolution from her controlled past work to her liberated present expression. With visitors literally walking through a transformation, Ms. Malhotra approached. "An influential critic, your new direction is remarkable. What inspired such a profound shift?" 6 months ago, this question would have triggered panic. Now, Priya smiled genuinely. "I stopped hiding," she replied simply, "both in my art and in my life." Throughout the evening, people approached with their own stories of anxiety, of hidden struggles, of finding voice through vulnerability. Each conversation affirmed what Rohan had predicted: her truth was creating connections, far more meaningful than her previous technical perfection ever had. During a quiet moment, Priya found herself before the final piece in her exhibition, painting of Rohan sitting with her in the garden. She'd titled it simply Presence. "You were right," she said as he joined her. "About everything," Rohan shook his head. "You did the hard work. I just had the privilege of witnessing it." Priya turned to face him fully, taking both his hands in hers. Around them, the gallery buzzed with appreciation for her art, but in this moment, the most significant masterpiece wasn't hanging on any wallet, was the relationship they had carefully created. Brushstroke by brushstroke, through patience, understanding, and unwavering presence. What happens after the exhibition? Eyes held hers with the same steadiness that had anchored her through months of transformation. Whatever we choose to create next, he answered, together. As if to seal this promise, he gently pulled her into an embrace, not to rescue her from anxiety or shield her from the world, but to stand with her in the beautiful and perfect reality they now shared. Across the gallery, visitors continued to move through Priya's journey, finding pieces of themselves reflected in her courage to reveal what had once been hidden. But the true masterpiece, the art of loving someone through their struggle toward wholeness, was being created in real time between two people who had learned that sometimes the most profound connections begin in our most vulnerable moments.